I love Star Wars. Ever since I was introduced to this galaxy far, far away and saw this weird world of space samurai with laser swords, I was hooked. And when I saw the larger picture connect in Revenge of the Sith, I knew from that day forward I wanted to be an artist, a creative, a storyteller that can inspire others the way Star Wars inspired me. And I wasn't alone in that. In fact, Star Wars has inspired many creatives across all mediums, and there's no greater representation of that than Star Wars Visions. Some of the best animation studios in the world allowed to tell a Star Wars story from their own perspective. And while Season 1 was phenomenal, Season 2 has reached a whole new level of amazing. And if you haven't seen Season 2 or even Season 1 of Star Wars Visions, stop this video right now, go check it out, and then come back. Because in this video, I'm going to be breaking down my 3 favorite episodes of Season 2 and explain why Visions is peak Star Wars. Let's start off with the second episode and probably my favorite of the season, Screecher's Reach by Cartoon Saloon. One thing about me, I love perspective. The world we live in isn't as black and white as good and evil. Much to the contrary, everything is about perspective. Where you come from plays a big part on how you see the world. Screecher's Reach takes a story primarily about good and evil, light and dark, and turns it on its head. We've seen countless stories of Jedi origins being noble and triumphant experiences. One person learning to overcome fear and trusting in the Force. At first glance, this seems like the same story with just a bit of a horror twist, and that's intentional. We start off in the worst place possible for our character, a labor camp. This world is dark, gritty, and monotonous. The type of place any young Jedi would desire to escape. An endearing conversation amongst our characters about making it out sets up this hero's journey even further. And once we get to the cave, it is clear that this is a Jedi trial, where the hero must connect with the Force and find their Kyber crystal. When Dal defeats the Sith and emerges with her lightsaber, a slight feeling of hope washes over the episode. The light returns, the music softens, and this feeling of hope is right on brand with our main character. But for the audience, hope slowly begins to fade when the relic glows red, then speaks. This is where the meaning and outcome of the episode splits depending on your level of Star Wars knowledge. As the ethereal ship approaches, pay attention to the music. If you know little to nothing about Star Wars, then you're in the same boat as Dal. For you and her, this is a beautiful moment. Dal has completed her trial and salvation has come at last. The only sad thing about this moment is that she must leave her friends behind. But the more you know about Star Wars and the Sith, the more horrifying this scene becomes. For you, the music is eerie. The Master is unsettling with her Sith yellow eyes, and you know that this is a Sith origin story. For Dal, she is leaving a horrible situation and stepping out into the great unknown. But for the educated audience, she is headed for a lifetime of unfathomable pain. The dichotomy of tone here between the beautiful artwork and eerie message is what makes Screecher's Reach a damn near masterpiece. Next we have The Pit. Right off the bat, I really liked this art style because it had a kind of Afro Samurai Boondocks vibe to it. This episode expands on the concept of prison labor that was so prevalent in Andor. I love exploring concepts like these because it shows why so many people were prepared to rebel against the Empire. Plus, this scene was really giving me Dark Knight Rises vibes, and I love it. But the thing that really stood out to me about this episode is when it turned dark. Multiple times this season, we've seen one character on the verge of imminent death, only to be saved by the Force. So it was an interesting change of pace to remove a bit of the Disney filter that's been on Star Wars the past decade and actually turn the character into a martyr, inspiring a movement both in the pit and in the city. We also get a nice little hint at the sentience of Kyber crystals. Notice how the city begins to light up as the people in the pit begin to chant. I believe this is the Kyber in the city crying out to the people who spent years mining it. I really enjoy when stories expound on the connection between Force sensitives and Kyber crystals, as it is a concept that's often glossed over in mainstream Star Wars. Many casual fans are even unaware that the color of a Jedi's lightsaber is rooted in their disposition to the Force. But that's why I personally feel that Aowu's song, the final episode, was a perfectly beautiful way to end the season. Aowu's song really dives into the sentience of Kyber crystals. So for those of you who don't know, Kyber is a living crystal that is used to power lightsabers and weapons of mass destruction. These crystals are force sensitive and generally lean towards the light side of the force, which is why they bond with light side force users. For a Jedi to obtain their lightsaber, they must enter a Kyber cave and face their Jedi trials until their specific crystal calls to them. The call of a Kyber crystal is like a song that only that specific force user can hear. The episode portrays this perfectly, as every time Aowu sings with the Kyber, the sound design and visual storytelling makes it really feel like only she can hear the song. When a crystal bonds with a force user, the color changes from clear to reflect the user's connection to the force. The color can be almost anything across the spectrum, usually lighter colors like green if the user is highly proficient in the force, or blue if the user is more skilled in lightsaber combat. However, the crystal cannot turn red when bonding with the user. Red is an unnatural color for Kyber, and it only occurs when a user pours their hatred, fear, and anger into the crystal, causing it to bleed a glowing red. Once the crystal bleeds, it can no longer bond with the user unless the crystal is purified. Few people across the galaxy have ever purified Kyber, Ahsoka Tano being one of the most notable, which is why her lightsabers are white. This makes Aowu extremely powerful, as her force sensitivity allows her to connect with all Kyber, not just one. I found the scene where she was in the cave amongst all the Kyber incredibly moving and beautiful. Getting to hear the Kyber's song, which we've never actually heard in Star Wars, gave me so much context to what it must feel like being a Jedi who is called to the Kyber. Star Wars is at its best when it dares you to dream. The reason things like Clone Wars and the first season of Mandalorian were so well received is because Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are legit Star Wars fans who got to tell their story. And that is the beauty of Visions. These creators being able to tell the stories they've dreamt about probably since they were kids just brings back the wonder of Star Wars. When I was a kid, every time I watched a Star Wars movie for weeks after, anything I drew was somehow inspired by Star Wars. And over the years, this galaxy far, far away has inspired some of my favorite creations. Unfortunately, outside of Mando, Star Wars hasn't done much to inspire me over the last decade or so. But Visions, man, Visions has reawakened something in me as a Star Wars fan, and I love that so much.